ways, those who turn their back to the faith, those who commit this and that. The Quran is a persistent engagement with disbelievers, with those who renounce Islam, renounce belief, and so on. And the Quran engages with them, but nowhere is there a specific punishment.
But the general view is that the punishment for apostasy is death.
Well, there is a hadith. There is a hadith which simply provides man baddala deenahu faqtuluhu. One who changes his religion should be killed. I have looked into the details of this hadith. It fails to provide a concrete, specific text. The words of the hadith, for example, one who changes his religion. So if a Jew become a Hindu,
then he should be killed as well.
He should be killed. This is not the intention of that text. And the hadith is also not a mutawatir hadith. It is an ahad hadith. Ahad hadith falls short of the requirement of establishing a death punishment.
And in the Quran there's no death punishment for apostasy.
Well, there is no death punishment. This hadith is actually meant for something else.
For something else.
During the time of the Prophet, very briefly, there were 26 or 27 military engagements. Some of them are major, some minor. During the period of 9 or 10 years, it was a state of war. There was no neutral grounds. There were some cases. Some people renounced Islam in Medina. Immediately they would go to Mecca and they would fight the Muslims. Now those are the people the Prophet had meant. Those who became enemy, renounced Islam and went to join the kuffar of the Quraysh and fought the Muslims. This is treason. This is treason.
That's treason.
Yes.
So for apostasy, in the Quran there's none for death punishment, but the hadith can be interpreted to mean that for treason there's a death penalty. But one more confusion is this, Professor, which regards to zina or adultery. There's also a view that for married couples the punishment is stoning to death, which has been criticized by many people as being very cruel and harsh. Is there any basis for this in the Quran?
The Quran itself only has one punishment,
100 lashes.
That is 100 lashes. That punishment of rajm is in the hadith. It is provided by the sunnah. It is established in the sunnah of the Prophet, but there is some detail to that. The punishment of zina was revealed in Surah Al-Nur. Surah Al-Nur came at the very last stages, the last 2 years of the Prophet's life. Now Surah Al-Nur was revealed very late. Before that, it was the previous revelations that the Prophet applied to these crimes, because the Quran recognizes Torah and Bible as valid manifestations of the law of God. Before we had that punishment in the Quran, it is very likely that the Prophet referred to Torah, and the Torah provides stoning.
Yes.
After the revelation of the Surah Nur, this was the Quranic punishment.
100 lashes, that's it.
Well, there is, of course, the debate goes on that even the caliphs after the Prophet have applied the punishment of rajm. But there is a hadith in Al-Bukhari. Someone asked a companion, Abdullah ibn Abi Awfa, this is a Bukhari hadith, a tabi, a successor, asked him, was this case of Ma'iz? Ma'iz was in Ghamidiyya, they were stoned to death. Did this take place before the revelation of Surah
So there was a doubt.
Or after? In this Sahabi, this was after the Prophet's death. He said, I don't know, I am not sure.
So there's a doubt.
Now, if that is the case, then the Quran abrogates
Yes.
what is before
Yes.
it. And 100 lashes become the standard punishment for zina. So I think that when issues become doubtful, then we refer to the first authority,
to the Quran.
which is the Quran. And there is the hadith of the Prophet also, idra'ul hudud bil shubhat, and drop the hudud wherever there is an element of doubt. Now here we have a doubtful case. Which one which one was first and which after? That is an element of doubt. There are other levels of doubt in the application of hudud. In applying that in a literal sense, without really looking into the grounds of what ijtihad, the messages that we have in the Quran and Sunnah, that you try to reconcile the laws of Sharia with the realities of your society in times. That is not happening. Now the Hudud Bill of Kelantan, they have fixed 6 punishments as hudud. I would say 2 or 3 of them are not hudud, like rebellion, bugha, apostasy, and wine drinking.
So in other words, the Hudud Kelantan bill is still debatable.
Well, I would say that this has come from the fiqh book without applying the element of, ijtihad.
Yes, ijtihad.
This is my criticism, that we should try to look into the modalities of the application of hudud. And if we were to actually apply the outlook and philosophy of Islam itself, the Prophet has told us in a hadith to take the minimalist approach in the application of punishments. Now what we have is the maximalist.
Okay, I would ask you a few more questions. We're running out of time.
Yeah.
This hudud law, is it an element of faith? Is it an element of aqidah, in the sense that as a Muslim, I have to uphold it? Is it an element of aqidah?
No, it isn't. Islam stands on its own 5 pillars, and we know what they are.
The 5 pillars.
And punishments has never been a part of the aqidah. Hudud is not part of the arkan of Islam, is not a part of the iman. In fact, there is a hadith, if you can find a way to relieve a Muslim from the application of punishment, try to find that way first. And if you look into the early history of Islam, every case of hudud that arose and came to the Prophet in the companions, the Prophet would ask questions. Are you sure? There was one case that someone came to the Prophet, and I've written in my book. He said, I've committed zina, and punish me because I feel guilty.
He's asking for himself to be punished.
It was prayer time, and he stood behind the Prophet, and they had performed the prayer, the salat together. Then after that, the man asked again the Prophet, I would like to be punished. He said, didn't you pray behind me? He said, Allah has forgiven you. That is the kind of approach. 3 times, 4 times, the Prophet would ask questions. Are you sure? You might have made a mistake. You might try to find a way. If there is an element of doubt, he would try to find a way out of the hudud.
If I may, Professor, this is a very interesting topic. We can go on discussing it. To wrap it up, what would Professor suggest should be the rational approach towards this hudud debate? Just a brief wrapping up.
The rational approach is not to politicize hudud. To look into hudud, first to try to understand the text of the Quran in its entirety. If you reach the conclusion that hudud are not really mandatory fixations, that they are open to the idea of reformation and repentance and correction, we ought to read that and we make it a part of the philosophy of hudud. In that light, there is no objection that hudud should be applied the way we find it in the Quran. And then we try to perhaps facilitate the best ways that they can fulfill their purposes, not to really to try to get rid of this mindset that hudud are for the sake of hudud, not for justice, not for prevention of crime, as if it is a part of the Aqidah. Islam has never made any pain and punishment a part of the belief.
After all, Islam is a mercy to all mankind.
It's rahmah, it's compassion, it is forgiveness, it is much more than that aspect of Islam, the soul of Islam. It is not the kind of punitive message that our society and our sometimes scholars seem to understand the hudud.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Muhammad Hashim Kamali. It's very kind of you to appear in this studio with us. So viewers, we are running out of time, and that's all for today's show. And if you'd like to know further, I've read these two books. You can read more about the hudud law and justice in Islam. I would suggest thank you very much. See you again on another day. I'm Jahabudin Muhammad Yunus. Hoping to see you again. Bye.